Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got the disassembly video for you on this little guy right here. This is the Reate Knives Coyote. And yeah, let's go on ahead and take it apart. What I'm seeing here immediately is that I'm going to need to take off this carbon fiber. Almost certainly, because I can guarantee you there's probably a screw right there. There's probably another one someplace in this vicinity here, right? This can't be held together with just these two screws and the pivot. That's not how it works. I need to have something in the back there. Right now, though, before we get started, we see that the centering is more or less dead on, maybe slightly favoring the clip side, and everything else is looking good. I'm looking forward to this just because I've been looking forward to carrying this. Right. This is a knife that I was actually, that Blade HQ helped me grab. Are we free spinning? We are free spinning. Oof. But more importantly, this is a knife that my Patreon patrons make possible. Is this thread locked shut? Okay, that one popped loose. That's good. I feel like I'm just going to go on ahead and switch to a higher torque driver at this point in time. But my Patreon patrons make the channel possible largely, but especially in cases like this where I've got something that's a little pricier that I want to pick up, check out, etc. They make it possible for me to just do that. And that's beautiful. Oh, look at that. Just a little tiny bit of pop, and it's free to go. Pop that out. And now the pivot. Now the pivot still remains free spinning. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this guy, and if you're curious about this kit or any of the other tools I use during my disassemblies, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools, and I'll tell you everything you need to know about it. My hope here is that once I get this in place, that all I need to do is twist a little bit, and it'll break free in a similar way, and everything will work out. Things seem to be loosened up now. There we go. Ah, okay. Sometimes you just let it fall, right? What I have here is the pivot is actually wanting to, like the screw end of it is on the show side rather than the, oof, which means I need to press this. So this is dumb right here. This is super dumb. And the reason that it is dumb is that I can't remove the clip, but I need to remove the clip to be able to remove this bit of carbon here in order to access the screws in the back, because I believe it is the case that the pivot is in the center of the carbon fiber here. So what I actually need to do now at this point is to push the pivot through. That will allow me to remove this carbon fiber gently, and that exposes these screws in the back here that are actually holding this whole business together, which are T6, which then allows me to, good Lord, pop this bad boy loose. Oh, come off it. Really? Wait, what? No, these screw directly into the tie on the other side. Those are some weird screws. I have never seen screws like that at a Reate. All right. But at this point in time, then, with this weird second screw out, the knife disassembles itself, and we see the complexity that's going on in here. This is number 100. All right. Okay, so internally speaking, there's not all that much to write home about. Actually, this is cool. Underneath the inlay here, because the carbon fiber inlay is just a flat-bottomed sort of affair. Flat bottom inlays make the rockin' world go round. Anyways, I digress. Ask your parents, kids. This right here is a, they've done some extra internal milling here, and it looks like, and doing it on this side rather than this side, I don't know that there's a reason for or against it, but at the very least, it's good that they did it, right? That reduces weight a little bit. Can't argue with that. All right. I don't actually think I'm going to need my ratchet driver anymore. But I'll go ahead and put that off to the side and give myself a little more space here. All right, so let's go ahead and clean off the relevant portions here. We see a stainless steel washer under there that things spin against, which is never a bad idea. We have, let's see here. All right. Under there, okay. Let's pick up the blade carefully, because this is actually a very slicey blade. It's beautifully ground and nice drop. Like, I'm really curious to carry this. This is a knife that I've had a bunch of stuff on my table lately. I occasionally get myself overcommitted, so to speak, where I accept too many, review samples or just buy too many damn things, more likely. And so I've got a backlog, so to speak, built up of things to review, and I've been kind of holding off on this just because, I've been looking forward to it, but I wanted to give myself a little extra motivation to slog through some of the things that maybe aren't as exciting directly, but are going to be relevant to viewers of the channel. And so it's been, this has been sitting there waiting like, hey, I wonder how this is going to go. And hopefully everything's going to be great. This is a cool-looking knife at the very least. I mean, there is absolutely no reason that this is not cool looking. The question is whether it's cool carrying, right? Whether it's a good knife in the pocket. Because that's a different question than whether it's a good knife in the life, so to speak. Okay, stop pin goes there. We're ready to put this guy back together. Okay, so then, how the heck do I put this back together? All right, my concern, and the reason that I'm sitting here thinking, oh, this is going to suck a little, is because of that whole pivot thing going in through the wrong... Really, bro? The pivot going in through the wrong side. Because what that means is that I need to slide the blade and bearings in last. This has a open stop pin path, so it's not impossible. It's probably smartest for me to do it that way, for me to just reverse the process. And I'll show you how I'm going to do this. But I may be making a mistake here. I may be doing it wrong. The other alternative, of course, to putting everything back together in this way, and I'm just lubricating that area there. But the other alternative, of course, and I'll lubricate the detent ball hole, or detent ball is where we're at it, is to put everything back together, like to swap the side of the pivot, basically, to push things through, and that would make more sense. But I want to, in some ways, I don't want to pretend that I know better than Reate as to how this thing is supposed to be put together. I'm going to use the little tiniest bit of thread locker on there, and then I'm going to go ahead and slip this in here. So what am I forgetting? Stop pin is in place. That's good. And the way I can do this is because the stop pin goes into this groove here rather than being entirely captive within there. But I'll go ahead and I'll tighten this down. Good. That's in there. Now let's go on ahead and tighten this down. Just had a momentary terror that I wasn't actually recording. I have done that depressingly many times. It's only like 5 or 10 times, but each time you're like, oh, good Lord, I'm an idiot. Okay, did you see me just backing things up there? That's to make sure that I'm not cross-threaded. If I'm in the hole, so to speak, and everything's proper, what I can do is just kind of go backwards, and then eventually it'll hop up and then fall back down into place, and that tells me that I'm not cross-threaded. So that makes things easier. So now at this point, what I can do is put this inlay back into position. I'm not going to go ahead. No, I should. My question was whether I want to leave these screws in position or leave these screws out until I'm sure that I'm doing the right route. Thing is, they're not hard to disengage, so I'm just going to go ahead and put them back in. That way I don't have to worry about the any of that. I don't know that this is the right approach. I really don't. But it's the approach I'm trying. All right. So now here's my game plan. The handle is back together. The only pieces that are missing from this knife are as follows. I need to make sure that these bearings are inside the blade area here. I need to slip the blade into position. Then I need to push this pivot through. The pivot I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lubricate ahead of time using a little bit of 10-weight nano oil here. That's going to do two things. Not only is it going to make the pivot lubricated for the daily functioning of the knife, but it's also going to make this guy just a little tiny bit easier to reassemble because hopefully everything... the pivot will slip into place properly, etc. So there's that. I'm also going to go on ahead and put a little bit of lubrication down on the detent ball path. Whoa, that's way too much. And a little bit in here just to make sure that we are good to go. Okay, next step here is going to be to put the bearings in position. because the reason I can do this at all is because this actually has like a little recess, basically, that the bearings live in. And that'll allow me to push the blade into position, so to speak, with the bearings in place. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I've got all of this kind of put together. The goal here is going to be to put all of this as a packet into the handle here. And now I should be able to shove everything back in there beautifully. Okay, so good. Now we've got the bearings are in position on both sides, and I can see that through the pivot hole. That's good. Next up, I need to press... That's right, the pivot goes in through the top side. So now I want to get the pivot into position. Now the pivot is free spinning, which is unfortunate, but makes my life a little easier. So what I do here is I've got my index finger is on the pivot here. That's going to be the force pushing that through. Now I'm going to disengage the lock bar, which allows me to move the blade into its rightful position. And then I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to press the pivot the rest of the way through. Now all I have to do to finish up this whole affair is to put a little thread locker onto the pivot here and put everything back together. This appears like, unless the action turns out to be hot garbage here as I've done it, this appears to have been the right way, in quotes, to do this. Action is not hot garbage. Might be a little too tight. Actually, I think I might want to loosen that up a little and see if I can get a... Yeah, that could go a little looser. Yeah, no, that's the right side. Loosen that up a little more. I'm going to try and go even looser. This has one immediate note, is these sharp corners are never a great idea. Ergonomically spoke, nope, a little too loose. Added some play. Let's go ahead and tighten that up. But yeah, the question is just like in daily life, in daily carry, how is this going to perform? How much are these corners going to annoy me? How's this blade with the weird recurve going to go? Is this just for the hand, or is this just for the eye, or is it good in the hand? Is it good in the pocket? You know, that's the kind of question you got to answer, right? So anyways, we put this guy back together. The approach that I ended up taking there worked, right? I mean, it put everything back together properly. I kind of imagine that I could have swapped the direction of the pivot and saved myself a little bit of trouble, and it probably would have been fine. But at the same time, there's a lot to be said. Frankly, Reate knows way more about making knives than I do, right? I know maybe more about complaining about them, but they... So I should probably just make the assumption that they did things the way that they did for a reason, that if I go the other way, it's not going to work out quite as well. So at the very least, I trusted them, and it seems to have worked out. A little bit more of a pain in the neck than I needed it to be, but you know what? Hey, not a bad thing, and, 13 minutes, not so bad at all. Hope this has been interesting to you, and most of all, that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.